Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 13th Annual Geneva Summit for Human Rights and Democracy. My name is Hillel Neuer, and I am the Executive Director of United Nations Watch. On behalf of the 25 NGO co-sponsors of the Geneva Summit, it is my honor to welcome you to this virtual gathering of human rights dissidents, pro-democracy activists, and former political prisoners from around the world. I want to begin by thanking our partners, a coalition of human rights organizations from around the globe, for helping us to organize this summit and to assemble courageous champions of human rights and democracy. A special welcome to all of you participating for the first time, and let me share with you just a little bit of our history. Since 2009, right before the main annual session of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, we have held our summit right across the street in order to place critical issues on the international agenda. The annual event has been attended by hundreds of diplomats, activists, journalists, and students. This year, due to the pandemic, the Geneva Summit is for the first time taking place virtually. We meet on the eve of the Human Rights Council's 47th session, and once again we seek to shine a global spotlight on some of the most urgent situations to place them before the United Nations and before the world. We meet 75 years since the founding of the United Nations Commission on Human Rights, whose founding chair was Eleanor Roosevelt. Over time, the Commission deteriorated, such that by 2003, the chair was a representative of Colonel Gaddafi's Libyan regime. In the words of Kofi Annan, the Commission was now, quote, casting a shadow on the reputation of the UN system as a whole. In 2006, the Commission was abolished, and in June of that year, the new Human Rights Council was created, which it was promised would address gross and systematic violations of human rights worldwide. As we meet now on the 15th anniversary of the new and improved body, we are entitled to ask, has the world's highest human rights body lived up to its promise? Sadly, in many cases, rather than scrutinize the world's worst regimes, the United Nations has elevated them to positions of influence. Consider the past 6 months. In January, the regimes of China, Cuba, Russia, and Pakistan each took their seats on the Human Rights Council, joining other serial abusers such as Libya, Mauritania, which still has slavery, and Venezuela. Likewise, in April, the UN elected the Islamic Republic of Iran, which treats women as worth half the value of a man, to its UN Commission on the Status of Women. Too often, the UN elevates and empowers the oppressors. Well, here at the Geneva Summit, we choose to elevate and empower the oppressed, those who have been thrown into prison arbitrarily by the dictatorships, those who dare to speak out in the name of freedom and human dignity for their people. When the UN Human Rights Council meets this month, most of the urgent situations represented here will not be addressed by any resolution, urgent meeting, or commission of inquiry. For example, the Council has turned a blind eye to China's oppressive actions in Hong Kong, where the imposition of a new and draconian national security law was followed by the arrest and imprisonment of pro-democracy activists and lawmakers. But today, here at the Geneva Summit, we will hear testimony from Nathan Law, the youngest ever to be elected to the Hong Kong Legislative Council. A lead organizer of the 2014 Umbrella Movement, Nathan Law was jailed for his advocacy work. Last year, he was forced to flee, yet he continues to speak up for the people of Hong Kong. China's persecution of the Uyghurs has also never been addressed by a single UNHRC resolution, commission of inquiry, or urgent debate. But today at the Geneva Summit, we will hear from Rehan Assat, a Uyghur activist and attorney who's fighting for the release of her brother, Epkar. He was abducted by Chinese authorities in 2016 and now languishes in a Xinjiang concentration camp. On Turkey, as we approach the 5th anniversary of President Erdogan's brutal purge of thousands of judges, academics, and civil servants, we'll hear today from Can Dündar, a Turkish journalist sentenced to 27 years on fake charges of espionage. At the UN, Turkey may be vice chair of the committee that oversees human rights NGOs, but here at the summit, we will have a genuine Turkish guardian of human rights. On Pakistan, which was just elected to the Human Rights Council, we'll hear from Gulalai Ismail, who will be receiving our 2021 International Women's Rights Award. She's a leading critic of the Pakistani security forces and has effectively placed a global spotlight on the rampant abuse of women and girls in Pakistan. In the last few months, Gulalai campaigned tirelessly for the release of her father, who was detained on false terrorism charges in retaliation for her advocacy. On Syria, we'll hear from Waad al-Khatib, the award-winning Syrian filmmaker who captured Assad's assault on Aleppo for her critically acclaimed documentary, For Sama. She was eventually forced to flee. Waad now campaigns to end the targeting of Syrian healthcare facilities, and she is building a war crimes case against the Syrian and Russian regimes. Although the Human Rights Council has repeatedly addressed Syria, much more needs to be done to stop Assad's brutal campaign against his own people. Finally, we'll hear from experts, Ambassador Andras Simoni, a former Hungarian ambassador to NATO and the US, on the fragility of democracy. And we'll hear from Professor Erwin Kotler, the former Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, chair of the Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights, one of our Geneva Summit partners, who will provide his unique perspective on the global struggle of political prisoners and where we go from here. Friends, your participation today matters. We need you to amplify the voices of our human rights heroes. Please share our Geneva Summit posts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and make sure to add your own voice, together with the hashtag Geneva Summit 2021. Please follow our remarkable speakers on their own social media accounts and share their testimonies. It is not your duty to finish the work of perfecting the world, but everyone is obliged to do their part. Thank you.